So good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome for this new panel about linear OTT services in Europe. My name is Thibaut Giry. I am market analyst at DataXist, and I will host today's event. But first of all, if you have any question during this presentation, feel free to use the Q&A button, and we will answer some of them at the end of today's presentation. The slides and the recording will be published on our website after this presentation, and you will be able to download them. But first, a few words about us. So DataXist is a business intelligence company with offices in Europe, Africa, and Latin America. We are leader in TV, OTT, and telecom with a strong focus across Europe, North and South America, and emerging markets. We regularly organize events in Europe, Africa, and America, which are, as you can imagine, only digital this year due to the current context. We also have a newsletter, Next TV News, dedicated to Latin American and African markets. And we recently launched a new data-on-demand platform with reports on TV, OTT, and telecom markets by country. And we are currently running a 3 free credits offer for new registrations. But before introducing our three speakers, let's have a look at the TV and OTT environment in which they are evolving. The European TV market has slowly started to decrease in terms of advertisements on a global perspective, driven by a move toward digital consumption from the users, then followed by a significant growth of digital video ad expenditures. Regarding the pay TV landscape, subscription revenues have been decreasing, especially in the UK, even if they are partially offset by a strong dynamic coming from OTT pay TV subscriptions. And on the VOD side, SVOD services have significantly increased in terms of subscriptions. As you can see on the graph on the left, Western markets are getting more and more mature, especially in the Nordics, where we expect a slower growth in terms of subscribers and revenue in the next years. As you can see on the graph on the right, while the number of AVOD platforms has not really changed in the last years, the number of SVOD platforms almost doubled. It is due to the fact that the AVOD environment currently consists mainly in broadcasters platform, which were all already available on the market in 2016. This is why it can seem a bit odd at first glance when we see the share of AVOD revenue growing in the total AVOD and SVOD mix, but it is almost exclusively due to the growth of YouTube revenues in the region. For more insight regarding AVOD in Europe, we made a webinar last week on this topic, and the presentation and the recording are available on our website. But let's go back on today's topic. Today, we will tackle the issue of going OTT from broadcasters' point of view in a more and more competitive and overcrowded video market, the strategies involved, what are the value proposition of 3 different major actors of the European video landscape, and what are the implications in terms of distribution, content, and partnering strategy. So with no further delay, I would like to welcome our speakers. So Win Colasastraseni, you are the General Manager of Dplay with a strong experience in online businesses, inside media, telco, startup environment. And as we saw previously, Dplay is well implemented in the European video landscape, available across the Nordics, the UK, and other Western European countries such as Spain and the Netherlands, where our other speakers are coming from. And we expect then a fruitful conversation between the 3 of you about your different strategies in these countries especially. Niels Bals, good afternoon. You are the Managing Director of NLZit. You oversee the major linear OTT offer dedicated to cord cutters in the Netherlands. You have been accompanying the platform since its launch in 2014, so you will be able to share your experience regarding the challenges for a service created as a joint venture between the major public and private Dutch broadcasters. And finally, good afternoon, Arturo Larenzar. You are the Director of Strategy of Atresmedia, one of the major broadcasters in Spain. Over the last years, Atresmedia have been diversifying its OTT offer from an AVOD offer to SVOD, with a very recent international expansion over Latin America. And on the content side, you launched Atresmedia Studios 2 years ago, dedicated to produce content for your own OTT platforms and for international exports. So first of all, I will have a general question for the 3 of you. What is the value proposition, your business model, and the content offer of your OTT services? Starting with Niels, for instance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, NLZ is an alliance, so to say, between the three largest networks, broadcast networks in the Netherlands, both the public broadcasting, which is very big in Holland, and the two commercial networks, RTL and Talpa, formerly SBS, and they launched already in 2014 a combined bundle, combined proposition, inspired by Hulu in the US, basically. And what we do is we bundle all the content of these three partners together in one subscription offer. We sell it directly to the consumer for $7.95. We started off the proposition only with SVOD content, so no advertising and premium catch-up, so to say. So you could watch the shows that were on TV or on linear broadcast a year after, and some shows already also in preview. And in 2017, we decided to enhance the offer with the linear streams as well. So basically, we are now a skinny bundle, and we're catering to cord cutters. If you look at the Dutch market, you see that there's that fiber connections is coming through, and a lot of people are choosing just an internet connection. And want to cater their own entertainment needs and don't want to be part of a total telco bundle. And this is where we deliver great value. Although we also have customers that have a TV package from a telco as well, so they combine it together.
We will go back on the consumer profiles just after. And I have the same question then for Win and for Arturo. So Win, could you elaborate also on your business model and what are the specificities of Dplay depending the different countries where you are available? Did you, for instance, made different typologies depending on the countries?
Sure. So Dplay is one of our flagship aggregation products in Discovery's international markets. And as you pointed out, we do have a very unique proposition dependent upon the local strength of each of the markets. And just going in more specific, the Nordics or the UK or the Italian markets are considered as broadcast markets. So we do have big free-to-air networks. We have a lot of pay TV channels in those markets. So the way that we leverage these markets are kind of unique in the way that we do have a hybrid model where we have both an AVOD and an SVOD funnel. And clearly, because we enjoy the strength of our global content portfolio from the Discovery brands across the world, plus the strength of the local commissionings, whether that's in scripted and non-scripted spaces. So our proposition it is very unique, and I think Neil mentioned one thing really interestingly. I think is the Hulu model. That is actually one thing that we've been kind of trying to envision, whereby our local regional broadcasters coming together to share different parts of the pie, whether that's the audience part, content part, analytics, ad tech, or anything, to really compete effectively with the global players that's looming ahead in most of markets across Europe.
Okay, thank you. So same question for you, Arturo. What are the specificities of your different OTT offers in Spain mainly?
Yes, our main OTT platform is Atresplayer in Spain, and I think as Win was saying, it depends on the position that you have on each market to define your strategy. So we have two different markets. That is the national market, the Spanish market, and then we have a different strategy for the rest of the world. In Spain, we have a hybrid model that is, as I will say, every broadcaster across Europe, that is based on a mixed offer of growth of advertising bid on demand and subscriber bid on demand. On the advertising bid on demand, we mainly offer the catch-up of the last 7 days, and the main value proposition for the SVOD will be, you know, the ban of advertising and also original content, premium releases, and things like that. That really add like a drivers of subscription. Regarding our international development, the proposition is not the same. It's just based on SVOD, because we are targeting people that is open to pay for our content abroad, mainly expats and things that really like the Spanish content or our particular content regarding Atresmedia. So basically, we have these two different approaches. As a whole, we have like 205,000 subscribers by both products. You know, which is a great mark, taking into account that 1 year ago, less than 1 year ago, we have just 75. So it's something that we have exploded in last year, and we are doing right now.
So talking about the subscribers and the audience, what are the specificities of your audience depending on the country? Starting with Win, for instance, because you have the widest reach in terms of countries with the play.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because, you know, I think it, as you pointed out earlier, it really is unique by each market. So I can give you the Nordics versus just Netherlands. The Nordic is very strong in, I would say, two broad categories. One is just young reality. So all these young reality shows, we are very well known for in that market. And generally, obviously, young reality equates to 18 to 35. Which, if you consider that on the TV aspect, it is considerably, you know, younger demographics. Whereas in Netherlands, I think, which is a much more traditional market for us, where we leverage a lot of the local talents, but using the global formats. That is where our demographic is a lot closer to TV, but still, on average, we're talking about 15 to 20 years younger, but skewing much more female in Netherlands because of our dominance in brands like TLC, food, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just in that two markets alone, it is very unique. And yeah, I can pretty much talk about every market where it has very unique proposition because of the local heritage that we have really had in the last 20, 30 years within those markets.
Okay, same question for you, Arturo and Niels, but with the specificity of being more domestic OTT markets. So what is, for instance, the split between your domestic audience and the people that can watch your services from abroad, for instance?
Do I start, Niels?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. In our case, it is funny, because if you think about on the national level, you think about the product regarding advertising-based video on demand, the profile of people accessing to our platform is really similar to the profile of people that is watching our content on the traditional platforms. So maybe in the many years ago, we have some kind of a skew for younger people, because where the internet as a whole has a skew there. But as many people is getting to access through online, to our content, this skew is mitigated, and right now we have a very similar profile. But what the magic happens is in the subscription video on demand. Which is surprisingly, we have a really younger profile. Like, I would say that 43% of our profile is 33 years or less. So right now, it seemed that the advertising-based offer has an access that is complementary to traditional television. People will go to our platform when they cannot go to the traditional way. But on subscription video on demand, you can experiment more with the content, and you can access to a target that they will not go to your traditional offer. So that's funny.
Okay, for NLC, it's a little bit the same. We have of course, our product is for a large scheme alike what telcos are offering. They also put in a bundle of linear streams. We add to that a full SVOD catch-up library. So that's interesting, but we see that from a demo perspective, we see a little bit younger demo than the than you watch it the regular viewing patterns, which is, in my opinion, quite logical because it's an OTT. It's a newer kind of network or a new kind of way of watching TV. But in the end, it's still TV, and there's much similarities with the regular target group. What we see is that we have people that are watching really a lot of TV shows, and that's where our product comes in, because it caters to them, because you can watch them with ad-free and without interruptions. So that's convenient. And there's this cord cutters group that doesn't have any TV subscription with a traditional telco, and that's where we come in, and then they use our product as their regular TV product, so to say.
Okay, thank you. We will go back later on the cord cutting trend, but before, can you each give us a general overview of the market competitions in the countries you are competing, and how has evolved so far your OTT strategy toward this increasing SVOD, linear OTT, and AVOD increasing competitions? Starting with Arturo, for instance, as a director of strategy at Address Media, as you are overseeing many OTT services.
Yes. Now, it's funny because I think that the first launch of Address Player was in 2010, or if I'm not wrong, it was has another name. And on that times we have just this only advertisement-based proposition, and was just like we were forced to launch it, and to just to answer the dynamics of the market. But we started to experiment with SVOD proposition in 2015, which I think that it was a little bit early for what the market dynamics of, for example, for Spain, and it was forced because our international offer in the very beginning we were offering it for free, and then we have some kind of crash with the fact that on our international development we just have relied on pay TV channels. So we had some problems with the distributors that said, why are you giving for free this content and trying to forcing me to pay for that. So in that moment we said, okay, there's no problem at all. We locked them, and then we discovered that there was some kind of people were open to pay to our content, which for us maybe it's a silly thought, but in that moment was surprising because we have always been an advertising based offer, and we really didn't realize that. So in that moment we started to have a lot of subscriptions, and the mix was totally different. Right now we have a lot of international subscriptions, and in Spain there were a little bit people that were open to pay for our content. It has changed in, I would say, last year or last 2 years, with the arrival of all of these OTT offerings to Spain. Spain traditional was a market that was tough for the pay TV market. I think that we have the lowest pay TV rate in across Europe. And the truth is that we have such a free offer that we're not open to pay, for content. But in the last 2 years, it changed a lot. And 2019, we pushed a little bit, we pushed a lot in promoting our SVOD platform. As I said, we officially relaunched it in last year in July with 75K users, and we have like the tripled in less than a year. So the first thing was to promote other original content, all the typical strategies that I think are doing the rest of the people.
Okay, thank you. How has evolved your strategy especially in the countries where Dplay is particularly strong, for instance, the Nordics?
Well, I think, on competition, it's, when we shift from TV channels and broadcaster-led programming, which are scheduled programming, to the magic one is with the consumer, there's an obvious, shift in power towards the consumer having more choices. And I think there is no market in the world that has that, I think that depth of decline penetration and decline viewership on TV as the Nordics. But again, as I said, it's just that, every market experiencing their own decline in viewership on TV, just differently as that all. But I think on Dplay, and generally across OTT markets in the Nordic is, now the consumer just really used to having, OTT subscription. I mean, you see the penetration now is I would say it's on par with the US with about 55% penetration per household. And the average, household would have almost I think two subscription service. So it is one of the most advanced market in terms of OTT. Obviously, competition is going to be really fierce. So I think for us in particular in that market, we're starting to see, and especially I think in the last 12 months, we're actually now seeing more content that are actually commissioned for our, I would say, digital native audiences on Dplay. The good thing is, you know, I think we've tested many scenarios where we use traditional content on TV, premiere those on Dplay first, and you know, it wasn't easy because we do have a lot of great partners in that region. But I think what we found out, and you know, we obviously we shared that with our partners, is that we found different audiences than TV. And a lot of times when we actually had them on Dplay as a premiere and then had it on, you know, on TV later, we actually didn't even see a decline in viewership and rating on TV. Some show actually even had improved rating on TV after it's actually premiered on Dplay. So, you know, there's a lot of complementary in the strategy of having content which are both same and also differentiated within a market like the Nordics.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Niels?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that surprising, but the Netherlands is a very highly connected country with, I think, broadband penetration with high speeds of 98% or more. So OTT is a very crowded market already, and what we see is that there's lots of players looking how to grab share. So we have our own broadcast networks having their own AVOD systems or AVOD platforms. They also sometimes have their own SVOD platforms. We are a combined platform, and then we see, of course, a lot of international platforms like the big names, the Disneys, the Apples. Everybody is almost there. I mean, it's probably a bit less crowded than the US because there's more over there. But yeah, it's really lifting off, and it's really fierce, and this is fun, of course, as well.
So as you said, it's going to be a bit overcrowded, both in terms of platform and content. So the first answer we could find is aggregation, so or partnering. So in that extent, could you all elaborate a bit on your different partnering strategies? For instance, starting with Niels, how is it to be a service that was born from a joint ventures, and how has evolved the relationship between the main shareholders in this project?
Yeah. Well, you have to understand, we're in a transition. I think the whole industry is moving towards an OTT model, and it will take a lot of years before we get there. But we used to compete on a local level within strict boundaries, and this is all opened up, of course. And what we see is that everybody we're basically competing on two fields. So my own partners, they're competing on traditional linear TV together. Well, on the other hand, they're competing with the big international platforms as well. And this is it's really hard, and it's all about who has some power. What's our if we decide to put this show exclusively on OTT, what we'll do to our rating. So it's really fun time in a way, because we have to find out what's the best strategy. But it's all moving towards OTT, and this is I believe that in the long run there will be a few platforms left, because this whole business is about scale, and then consumers will have maybe 3 to 4 subscriptions, and we believe that there is room for one local player to bring that really local flavor to the customer, because you want to stay connected to your local community and know what's going on, and this is where we can differentiate, I believe, from these international platforms. Yeah.
So how has evolved your partnering strategies in Spain, for instance, Arturo, with your partners, for instance, for the Loves TV project?
Yeah. I think as you have said, aggregation is the key from an economic point of view. Obviously, having original content is a key driver for subscriptions, but after that, you have to keep the people in the platform, going every day to watch your content. So you need to aggregate. The more you can aggregate, the better it is. So here in Spain, as Atresmedia Media, we are open to any kind of partnerships. We have two different examples of partnerships. For example, in Atresplayer, we have a partnership with Televisa that is an add-on services that if you want to hire the services for telenovelas from Televisa, we help this product with our communication effort and with our funnel conversion. And for us, it's a win-win situation because for them it's better, and for us, it helps because it adds value to our platform as itself. And regarding the best TV, is the same thought. We started to wonder how would we aggregate and share synergies in terms of technology, value proposition, etc., to access to our traditional TV content. We partnered with Televisión Española and Mediaset in Spain, thinking about a two-stage project. That was, the first one was to add value to the smart TV's content using HBD TV technology. So try to give value to the traditional DTT distribution channel, the digital terrestrial, giving the access, some features that are typical on pay TV and giving it for free, like catch-up services, access to catch-up, start over, and some functionalities like that. That was the beginning of the partnership. In the very beginning, in the project, the second stage was to evolve to OTT strategy. Right now, this is on a standby, because at the end, as Niels has pointed out, it has its challenge to evolve any kind of project regarding three different competitors. Obviously has its challenges, and it's something that takes more time than expected. So I think that from an economic point of view, everyone agrees that it makes sense, but you have always to try to, it's something that it takes longer than expected usually.
Okay, so you said you were open to partnerships. Could you, for instance, think of partnering together in Spain or Netherlands? I'm talking, for instance, about Atresplayer with Dplay and Dplay with NLZ, for instance. Is it something you could consider?
I think from our point of view, we are open to partner with anyone. Obviously, then you have to go to the concrete partnerships and see if it fits or not for both parts. But I think from the very beginning, point of view, we are open to really weird partnerships. For example, I'm not talking just about OTT. We have always partnered with. You were talking about Atresmedia Studios. We have launched with Telefónica, a partnership to be the biggest producer in Spain for Spanish content with them, which is a distributor. And you will never think about Telefónica as a partner for content, and you think it makes a lot of sense because both of us produce great content. So we are open to any kind of partnership. Obviously, with Discovery or even with Niels, we're open to Discovery.
Okay.
So what about you, Win and Niels? Is it something you could consider, that kind of partnership? Did you really think about it? Do you have already discussion about that?
Well, there have, as far as I know, there have been discussions about aggregation of Discovery linear and maybe also VOD content within NLZ. The model that we use within NLZ is that you get paid by your viewing time. So, for instance, if NLZ earns 100 euros in a month and one of our partners has delivered 30% of the viewing time, you can earn 30 euros. So this is a different model than the traditional licensing model. And this is, for some players, maybe something that they have to get used about, but we only pay for what you deliver, so to say. And but I don't know where it is. I mean, we're an open cooperation model, so there's partners can easily join. So yes, of course, a win is welcome, so to say.
Thanks, Neil. No, I just want to second that as well, because we have been very active in I would say in the past 4 or 5 years on partnerships, and you mentioned one, which is the ProSieben and Discovery joint venture in Germany, where that's actually quite independent, run by an independent management team. So that we kind of let them kind of actually do their own independent thing in that market. We have very similar to what News is doing. You know, in Poland now with Polsat and TVN really partnering up, also in very much a JV. You know, we partner with our own partners in the affiliate side through Sky's, just recently announced on Sky in the UK and in Germany to actually have Sky carry our OTT products in their, you know, their entire customer base for Sky in both countries. And, you know, we do have traditional licensing deals as well across the Nordics where we carry, you know, most of our local football leagues. And our partners actually just resell, you know, the Dplay football package as an example. So we're very open and very flexible. It all depends on what the end goal that the two partners really want to achieve.
So as you said, sometimes those partnerships are managed by a different team. So as the three of you are all integrated in some bigger group, I had very simple questions. To what extent is it possible for you to inflect the OTT strategy of your services while your owning companies have their own OTT strategies? I'm thinking of Discoveries, of RTL, Talpa, all your shareholders. In fact, they have already their own OTT strategies. And how do you manage to build your own OTT strategies independently of the one of your groups?
Is it for me the question? Yeah, well, this is of course a tough thing because yeah, it's not that NLZ is creating content, so we're totally depending on what the content is that we get from our partners. But yeah, we have I think quite a clear strategy. So it's not that we need to adjust this all the time, luckily. So I think it's not a big issue.
Yeah, I think that from an economic point of view, it makes sense to partner with your shareholder or share a common strategy or with another companies, because if you add all the amount of money that we invest each other and you add up, it is even lower than the money that your global competitors are spending. So from an economic point of view, it makes sense, all regarding technology and the development of your product by itself. The main problem here is that that from a cultural point of view, so far, I think that the appeal for local content and all the things that rely on the particularities of each market force you to think that it makes sense local partnerships. So right now we are in some point in between that we really don't know how will be the partnerships in the future. It will be global and it will be more technology focused, and which you have to share a common roadmap with another players, or it will be more local, which you have to partner like Niels on a local basis and link the content with the product itself, and then you will be more tied so far to the local partnerships. I think that's the situation we are right now.
Yeah, Discovery as a group, we're literally in every business model you can imagine right now. Whether that's the super aggregation like what we have in Dplay in the Nordics and a few other markets. We have the niche aggregation like Eurosport, who's only pure sports. We have products like Golf TV, which is even super niche towards the golf community globally. And then you have very, very niche product, which are quite unique in the OTT space, called Food Network Kitchen, which is a very much a view and do concept that we have in Discovery. It is very much about learning cooking, live classes, very much to do interaction with the actual content piece. So it really is different, in all those buckets. But I think for me, what we do and what we focus a lot is really, at the end of the day, it's about the consumer, right? What are you actually providing consumer? What's keeping the consumer on the platform? And for them to all, keep them coming back. Obviously, tenureship is critical in a subscription service. So those are really the core, I think, what we really focus on. And, obviously, where would you get the inorganic growth plus the organic growth that keeps you above fold? in this mass aggregation, story that we're in some of these markets.
Okay, thank you. So regarding now the online strategy, what are your tools to increase your reach on your platforms? Do you have, for instance, a dedicated strategy towards social networks?
Oh, do I catch up this one? Okay. Regarding Atresmedia, regarding social networks, I think that we have like two different two different variables. From one hand is a distribution channel, but also our promotion channels. And right now, it's difficult for you to differentiate by these two different variables. Because you have to use the social networks to promote your content, and in the way that you have to try to drive those audiences to your own platform. But it's difficult because there are really strong distribution channels, and sometimes it's difficult. So you have to keep the way to monetizing on those platforms, and as far as you can, you have to try to keep it to your platform. The truth is, if you think about how is this a hybrid value proposition that we are talking about, the broadcast video demand freemium, the social networks play a big role there, because our main strength against the pure SVOD proposals are the funnel of conversion. So the higher you can have on the top of that funnel, and reaching as many people as possible, the better will you convert on the last stage, to subscribers. So you have to rely on your very big distribution in every channel platform, and then try to drive subscriptions, and that will be where the broadcaster has the best weapon against the rest of the competitors, I guess.
I think social media is it's a complex topic, because I think for us, the first question we need to answer ourselves is, who are our primary audience that we're trying to capture, right? If it's young, then social media makes perfect sense as an acquisition, funnel for us. And we do spend a lot of money with performance marketing in those channels. But if your product and your content proposition in the market is tending towards more, I think older generation, then it's a combination of everything from even using promo slots within TV to actually entice them to your platform, to even more like outdoor. I mean, you think about Netflix actually spending a lot of their money on outdoor. It is really, it's not just about social anymore. It's just about the entire funnel, because it really depends on who your audience and who you're trying to capture.
Yeah, and for us, we have a limited budget, so to say, but we have an agreement, sort of silent agreement, you could say, with our broadcast partners. I give them a TV promo or commercial. They put it in their channels when they have space for it. So it's not like a real campaign, but it's more like when they have inventory left, I can use that. So this is how I try to get brand awareness and proposition awareness, and on top of that, we do a lot of digital marketing to get people through search engine advertisements and search engine optimizations, but also campaigns on YouTube or other platforms. And we try to get people in. On social, we do kind of we put in certain fragments of shows, and then we try to interest people for our service. Basically, this is how we do it now.
Okay, so regarding what you said before, Niels, the fact that some of your partners were also in some extent your competitors, let's go back a bit on the linear programming. How do you see your content portfolio being split between the legacy TV business and the aggregating platforms? Do you see a serious risk of cannibalization between linear consumption and over-the-top and VOD consumption?
What we very clearly see is that, which is also maybe logical, but we offer both linear scheduled streams, as Win said, and VOD stream. So for us, it doesn't matter if people want to watch it live or a year after it has been broadcasted, or a week after, or a minute after. it's up to the consumer, so to say. But we clearly see, of course, that that content that has a limited time to be valuable, that's of course consumed linear. So you have to think of sports or talk shows or actualities, but all the other stuff which you can watch on your own time, that's being consumed as VOD, and this is a very clear thing, but I think this is not really new.
Yeah, I think that it actually gives you more degrees of freedom, you know, to produce any kind of content. As long as you can be, you know, play in different markets. If you think about a hypothetical matrix between, you have SVOD, advertising based model, and you have live and non-live, and then you can put some kind of content to be consumed in each box. So yeah, obviously the patterns of consumption and driving to some kind of products, to any kind of non-live or subscription based. And what you have to do is to try to develop all the business models and all the kind of possible products to reach as many people as possible. So from my point of view, it's more an opportunity. It's an obligation because you have to do it, but it gives you more degrees of freedom, you know, to produce.
Yeah, we're moving towards now even closer to a digital first content commissioning process. What that means is, you know, any content commission has to have a digital component, which actually digital is probably more important. And this depends a little bit on market by market, but I think especially for our big markets, the first filter we put on any commission is it has to work on SVOD. If it works on TV, it's great. If it doesn't work on SVOD and AVOD, that is not a show we want to commission, regardless whether it actually does really well on TV. And that's a really different.
Yeah.
Sorry. You
know, but how do you know? How do you judge up front then whether it works for SVOD or AVOD? What criteria do you put in there?
That's $1 billion question, Niels. But yeah, it is not easy. It's not an exact science, or it's not an exact art either. I mean, I think we're fortunate to have some really talented, you know, content leads across the world in some of our key markets. So, you know, our hit rate has been phenomenal in like the Nordics or Italy. But again, you know, content is the hardest thing on the planet. You can't use analytics. We can use analytics to talk about what the length of the show should be to optimize conversion and retention. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's still very much about what the real content, you know, appeal is. And, you know, again, as I said, some of our genres like young reality or some very female-centric shows that we have are just massive hits, whether that's on TV or on digital.
Okay, thank
obviously
you.
We need a lot more.
Always.
Well, I can elaborate a little bit on this as well. What you see, what I see at least in the US, but and today I thought Disney announced to break up some linear channels as well because they wanna push Disney Plus in the UK. So I think in the US, but also maybe in other countries, you see broadcasters moving away from the traditional linear model towards their own platforms. I think this is a trend we see as well. But the timing and the paceness in which they do it, that's the question, of course. And it's all about how much money can I earn with the old and with the new distribution model, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I see that some questions were asked and answered already by the audience and the panelists. So I have another question from Gustavo Mara, dedicated to Arturo. So Arturo, do you have a specific advertisement strategy for Atresmedia distribution in Latin America?
Regarding advertising in Latin America, we have to understand that as I say, the value proposition is totally different. We don't have the reach enough I'm talking about the digital development. So we don't have the reach enough, you know, to obviously you always have to monetize. You always can monetize to advertising, but to make it attractive or to have a strong market competition or market position. Regarding our pay TV channels, obviously we have a good distribution footprint. So we always advertising is a way to improve the monetization of your product. But you have the problem is that it's so fragmented across the different submarkets or each country that it's difficult to have a strong position regarding, you know, against big agencies and advertising. And so what we have is small branches, digital branches. Through one of our companies, this is SmartClip in the Latin market, and this is the main driver of advertising revenues in our international footprint.
Okay, so far we have very little talked about innovation. We started to talk a bit about that earlier. What are, according to you, the main challenges in terms of innovation for your OTT services? Is it more related to voice search, content recommendation, streaming experience, UX design, something else?
Okay.
I can go first. I don't think there's a silver bullet in OTT, right? So it's about two things. It's about what do you do to actually have people and consumers to actually have the best and most seamless discoverability of your content, especially in an aggregation product, right? When you have tens of thousands of hours of content, the hardest thing to navigate, and again, talking from experience, is you have to really go into the library to actually see what's available. People are typically not that incentivized to actually browse things that long. So for a product owner like me, the one thing that we need to do much better, and you know, this is probably goes a lot across every product, is how do you improve discoverability in a way that is seamless? And you need, it's about content recommendation, but at the end of the day, it's about the frictionless experience that you're bringing in, whether that's voice, you know, on Connected, or whether that's just a sign up page on, you know, on your Chromecast. How do you effectively make it less frictionless as possible? You know, again, a newer type of innovation that we're seeing is how do you, you know, I think what Amazon is famous for is that one-click sign up, right? How do you do that in a very GDPR friendly way across our market? So that's the challenge, is how do you actually comply with regulation that we have in each of the markets, but also really putting the consumer at the forefront of the experience on the product side.
Yeah, I think I agree totally with Wim regarding the challenges of accessibility and this world that we are moving in the coming years. But I will add another field of innovation that is required, and I will put the broadcaster's hat, is the addressable TV issues. You know, everything, you know, we have to monetize properly our digital content. I think that it will come through addressable TV, but it's something that we have been talking for so long, and it's always there. And you know, it's a way to improve. Choose two critical things. That one is monetization, but the other one, as Wim has said, is about customer experience, is about user experience. So I think that's another important point for broadcasters in the coming years regarding innovation.
Yeah, well, I can add to that. There's lots of different areas where we need to improve and do innovation. And I mean, if you look at the big players, and it's really interesting to see for instance the intelligence of these interfaces. This is something that then your whole data model, going back to your root companies, has to be aligned, normalized. This is really difficult stuff to manage, but if you can get it right, and it will take more years, probably, but of course we can still innovate and get better. You talk about voice search. Yeah, well, for that specific topic is not that big here, for instance, but there's lots of stuff that everybody's doing, I believe. So And I agree with Win. It's about getting it as frictionless as possible towards the end consumer. This is the game. Yeah.
So as you said also previously, regarding connected devices and Chromecast, how has evolved the importance of the TV screen in the OTT offers? And based on your respective experience, are the TV uses different from AVOD to SVOD or linear OTT?
Shall I start? Because I don't know about AVOD because we don't do that. But for our service, it's the big screen is the main screen. So I think about 70–80% of viewing time is on the big screen. So it's on the smart TV, but also maybe on the Chromecast. It's all watched on the big TV. So mobile, but don't underestimate mobile in a way, because mobile is of course a really interesting device as a companion as well to watching on the big screen. So people are using the mobile to browse through your content and see what they want to watch, which is of course more simple than doing it through your remote control.
Yeah, I think if you add all the possibilities of a TV, and you take the traditional one, the smart TVs or the hybrid between HPV TV and everything, obviously it's still the main is what this is in the living room of the majority of the households. So there it is, the big boat. But and other kind of digital by itself, online and everything, it helps you to go to other places where you don't kind via mobile and everything. So it's still the big leg. But the truth is that when someone buys a smart TV, it radically changes their consumption patterns. I think that it's something that we can think about ourselves, but it's general. In the moment that someone buy a smart TV and connect it to the internet, it dramatically changed in the next months their viewing patterns. So the truth is, okay, you can consider as a whole, and TV is the main source of our content. But the truth is that it's split in two different attitudes, two different worlds. So we, as a broadcasters, we have to put a lot of effort to understand how it's consumed in those new platforms, because it totally changed. You are more open to subscription. You are more open to fragmented content. So it's totally different from our side, I would say.
No, I agree with both your assessment. I think, connected devices across smart TVs and there's other kind of casting devices are generally longer, viewership, and probably even have a higher attendership on the SVOD side. But I agree with Niels. I mean, mobile is a very active community for us in Dplay, and they consume both every content, and and AVOD is actually a big driver on mobile for us in a lot of markets. So for me, it's not about whether one platform is more important than another. It's actually just the ability for people to switch between one device to another, which is really crucial. And because, especially when you look at consumer who is really, into a service like Dplay, they're typically on 3 devices at least, right? So for us, it doesn't matter. Every device is really as important, and depends a little bit about the content, right? Because if you're watching live sports, it's a big screen experience, right? But if you're watching a young reality 25 minutes per episode show, you can easily do that on mobile, especially if you're young. Yeah. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Thibaut.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you for your answer. So we have a couple more questions from the audience before ending these presentations. So first question from Gabriel Moore. What is your underlying data management strategy, and is it an overarching approach or focused on specific areas?
For everyone? Okay. I'll start. Regarding our data strategy, I think we started 1 year and a half or something like that to have a really good data strategy. So we are in a very incipient moment. What we have to try is to leverage as much as we can the data and try to, and the first thing that you think, or the first topics in which you think that you can do that is on user experience from one side in terms of content, and on advertising on the other side. So that I think that those are the two fields in which we can do it. You know, we are experimenting. We have several cases, and it's try to gather and understand all the possibilities that you have regarding your data, and try to leverage as much as possible. And the big the big question is if you can leverage the data from TV and apply to any other environments. That will be, I think that's the main challenge for the coming years.
Yeah, well,
and to protect it. Sorry, and to protect your data. That's really important. Sorry.
yeah. Well, you have to be. I think this is the whole thing that that broadcasters need to get control over their viewing data. They have traditionally distributed their products through third parties, and this is, I think, strategically you want to get directly to the consumer because you want to get grip of the data to innovate your ad model or to enhance your content offering. This is where you need the data. Are we there? No, of course not. I mean, there's so much to do there. We are starting now to aggregate all the different data sources we have and combine them. And there's still a lot to do. A lot to do. But we're making progress. And but it's something you can. You don't, if you want to start off a service, you don't need to start off with a big data strategy. I always say if you don't watch out, you drown in your own data lake. And this is something where you need to really, from a business perspective, I believe, ask the right questions and then see how you can answer them and start measuring and get the right data in your system.
Yeah, absolutely want to echo what Neil said. I mean, broadcaster and pay TV operators are true B2B, machines. But moving into a direct consumer business, it requires very different DNA. So, I think for us, data has always been, I would say, as important as security, and security in terms of security of data, but security overall. So for us, if we don't have data set up properly, we won't launch a feature. That's as true as everything we do. On the other hand, data for us, again, to my earlier point, there's no magic in data. We can talk about big data, but if you don't even connect your user journeys, data is pointless. So especially now with your own and operated platforms, it becomes even more critical to really link up your consumer data in a way that is really usable and real time, right? Because now with GDPR, you can't rely on third-party data and matching, blah, blah, blah. So for us, data is such, I would say it is a DNA of moving towards a direct consumer business across Discovery.
Okay, thank you. One last question because we're running out of time. From Letterio Pirone, according to you, it's dedicated to the three of you, can satellite broadcast complement OTT broadcast? And if yes, how for a seamless user experience?
I can answer that. Yes, that's possible. Because especially in the newer TVs or the HBB TV, this is a kind of a general set of
hybrid broadcast between TV and IPTV.
Yeah, exactly. But HBB is a broadcast standard, and there you can go into the OS of a TV. And if a satellite device being attached to the TV, you can use that could be satellite, but it could also be cable or other devices that you can use the linear streams from this thing, and it would be helpful because then you don't have any difficulties with for your linear streams. You don't have any difficulties with interrupts of your internet connection and stuff like that, and you can combine that together with an OTT app where you put in VOD or whatever. So yes, it can be combined. So it's a little bit of a technical thing, but it can be done.
Yeah, I think that in Spain we have a particular situation in which the terrestrial distribution is is the main source, and we on a potential way we reach like 98% in terms of potential reach. So and satellite in Spain is really in the past we used to have satellite distribution, but right now it only reaches where it's only based for pay TV, and it's only used when you cannot reach via IPTV. So in Spain, I think that's a very particular situation.
Okay, so if we don't have more question, thank you, the three of you, for your time and for these very fruitful conversations. I remind our attendees that they will be able to download the presentation in the next days through our website. And if you have more questions regarding this webinar or the further that are coming, you can see my email address on the PowerPoint presentation and send me all your questions. Thank you again, Niels, Win, and Arturo for all this time and all those fruitful insights. And good afternoon to everybody, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
inviting us.